Once upon a time, in one of the greatest countries on earth, a law was passed which negated the rights of certain citizens. Overnight, 120,000 innocent patriots were rounded up, stripped of all rights and property, and locked up in relocation camps for 2 long years. Without any warning, they were branded as potential terrorists and suddenly had everything taken from them: their homes, their freedom, their dignity, and all in the name of national security. The scariest part of this story? This didn't take place in Russia or China or in some third world country. It happened right here in the United States of America. Hi, my name is Bob Parker, and in this short video that could be taken down at any minute, I'm going to show you right now how martial law can and almost certainly will be implemented again sooner than you think. And when this happens, you will be robbed of your most basic rights in a blink of an eye. I will expose the truth about a dark chapter in the history of our nation that could repeat itself this very year when anarchy comes to the U.S., virtually guaranteeing a front row seat for preppers, patriots, and all the other enemies of the liberal socialist agenda. But more importantly, if you stay with me until the very end of this brief presentation, I will show you one of the most powerful ways to opt out of a martial law scenario. Stay out of relocation camps and keep your personal freedom intact, even as your neighbors and their children are being held at gunpoint by militarized policemen. Like I said, I'm Bob Parker, and I've been a prepper long before prepping was mainstream. Not because it was cool, not because it made for interesting conversation, but because after decades of studying the violent history of this world, prepping seemed like the only common sense thing to do. In my research, I grew interested in the concept of martial law and how likely it was that we will experience such a scenario in the near future. What I uncovered shocked me to the core, because the next few months are likely to mark a crucial turning point in America's history, and the results will almost certainly prove to be devastating for the vast majority of the population. And you need to know what to expect and how you and your family can avoid being shipped to a FEMA camp, how you can avoid a bloody showdown with the authorities, how you can not only survive, but even thrive once martial law has been put into place. Many patriots are asking, can martial law really happen in the USA? But it's a question that shouldn't even be asked, because martial law happened here before, on U.S. soil, and not just once. Less than 10 years ago, Americans were given a glimpse of what it means to live under it. When Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, the feds rushed in and confiscated more than 1,000 firearms owned by law-abiding citizens, leaving them unprepared to defend themselves against the real criminals, who, of course, still had their own illegal weapons at hand. As curfews were set in place, average citizens like you and I were left defenseless, caught between armed federal troops on the one hand and gangs of armed looters on the other. Yet Katrina was far from an isolated incident. Americans got another nasty preview of martial law in the spring of 2013. The Boston bombings proved that martial law can be enacted at a moment's notice and that our government will not hesitate to suspend citizens' rights in the name of anti-terrorism. In this case, an entire major U.S. city was shut down, with tanks rolling through the streets and militarized police breaking down people's doors at random. No search warrants, no warnings. Innocent citizens were held at gunpoint while their homes were searched and their registered guns confiscated. But these are just some local events. This could never happen on a national scale, or could it? As disturbing as they are, the above examples pale in comparison to what happened during World War II right here in America. Shortly after Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government made a shocking decision that resulted in the unjust imprisonment of over 120,000 law-abiding American citizens. These were regular folks, some of them genuine patriots who were owning legitimate businesses, were working in factories, or were actively contributing to the war effort. Their only fault, and the sole reason why their fate was sealed? Their parents and grandparents were Japanese. These were not illegal immigrants, terrorists, criminals, or even refugees. They were ordinary American citizens who were herded into internment camps, losing their homes, losing everything, just because some bureaucrat labeled them the enemy of the state. During the same time, the 442nd Infantry Regimental Combat Team was making history. This was a legendary unit made out of Americans with Japanese heritage who fought the Nazis in Europe, and who by the end of the war became the most decorated infantry regiment in our nation's history. They were superb. They showed rare courage and tremendous fighting spirit. General George Marshall remarked. These brave men fought and died for our country while their mothers and fathers, their wives and children, their friends and relatives were being rounded up and treated like cattle. What's this got to do with you? Let me put it this way. The next time this happens, it won't be the Americans with Japanese ancestry behind barbed wire. And if you're clinging to your guns and to your religion, if you believe in one nation under God, if you uphold the Second Amendment not to defend yourself, but to defend this great country from a tyrannical government, then you could be labeled a terrorist and become the next enemy of the state. The government is busy disarming its citizens while building up massive domestic military presence designed to exert control over us in the event of a national emergency. Some are convinced that their agenda is to gain complete dominance over the population. Once there's no more chance of armed revolt, no chance of the citizenry rising up against them, our corrupted so-called leaders can finally implement the plans they've had in store for us all along. The only obstacles in their way are us patriots who cling to our principles, who aren't afraid to exercise our rights and our freedoms, and who haven't allowed ourselves to become silenced. It seems that in the new America, if you own guns and are skeptical of the government, you are already a suspected terrorist. If you support the NRA and believe in stockpiling food, water, and ammo, you are on a list somewhere. If you are a veteran who speaks out for other veterans, you are highly suspect. And the fact is, the government is preparing for something big. Many Americans aren't aware of the fact that dozens of federal agencies are becoming increasingly militarized. And we're not just talking about the ATF or the Bureau of Land Management. Did you know that the Department of Agriculture has its own SWAT team? Or how about the Consumer Product Safety Commission? In fact, agencies you probably never even heard of now have their own SWAT teams. You may also not be aware that Homeland Security grants have been given to local police forces across the nation, encouraging them to create their own paramilitary SWAT units. There are now more than 50,000 raids carried out by local police SWAT teams every year. Compare that figure to the 3,000 per year that were conducted in the 1980s, and you'll begin to get the picture. So what reason could they possibly use to instate martial law? One in particular is making patriots uneasy. For several years now, China, Russia, and the oil-producing Middle Eastern countries have been discussing moving away from the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Everyone knows this will happen eventually, but now it appears that it may very well happen in the next few months. Our ever-increasing debt and general downward economic spiral may very well trigger the fifth and final stage of our complete economic collapse. If Russia drops the dollar, and if the other nations follow suit, which at this point many of them likely will, our teetering economy will not be able to withstand the blow. When the collapse comes, events will unfold rapidly. Once the American people realize the seriousness of their predicament, we will have mass demonstrations and riots. In fact, all hell may break loose in various cities across the nation, with police clashing violently with desperate and angry citizens. And that will only give the government a free pass to do what it's been trying to do for decades, to come after us. It won't take long before the government begins to act, rounding up those who display any sort of independent spirit, those patriots who are looked to for leadership by their peers, even those who merely own registered firearms. Preppers, conservatives, Tea Party members, NRA members, we are the ones the government is most afraid of. And when they come into our homes, no one will be here to help us. Very few cried for the Japanese Americans, and even fewer will cry for patriots when they begin to round us up. The manipulated liberal media has painted true patriots as crazed, right-wing, tinfoil hat, trigger-happy extremists, and much of mainstream America has taken the bait. Once martial law is put into effect, there won't be any warnings, no search warrants, no due process. There won't even be a knock at the door. No, what's much more likely to happen is that one night, while you're peacefully sleeping, you'll be awakened by blinding lights and the sound of screaming as you and your family members are dragged out of bed at gunpoint. After your guns, your property, and all your belongings are confiscated in the name of national security, you and your family are taken away to live in a FEMA camp until the government has decided you're no longer a threat. I pray this never happens to you or me, but the reality is that it very well might. So, what are your options? How can you make sure that you and your family will be safe when anarchy and martial law follow the inevitable economic crash? How can you avoid being among those who are led away to the internment camps? One possible approach would be to leave the country before the collapse, liquidating your property and taking your family out of the danger zone that the U.S. will become when martial law is enacted. This is an almost guaranteed way to avoid martial law, but it's also easier said than done. For people with families and pets, with friends, with businesses, with homes they built over a lifetime, this seems like too big of a price to pay. Another option might be to try and defend yourself and fight back. But when they come with armored vehicles and more firepower than you could ever hope to stockpile in a lifetime, what happens then? What you really need are the knowledge and strategies that will help you to recognize the warning signs, along with techniques that will help you avoid being a target in the first place. You need to learn exactly what you should do before and during the enactment of martial law. There's precious little information out there on the subject, and that's why I have made it my mission to prepare patriotic Americans such as yourself for the uncertain future we are now facing. When I began working in earnest towards realizing this mission and sketching my survival plan, I decided I needed the help of some of the top experts in the field. I enlisted the help of Bill White, a dedicated survivalist and respected author of the best-selling book, Conquering the Coming Collapse. Bill is a retired Army officer with a thorough understanding of how the landscape could change should the U.S. end up being run by the military, and was able to provide me with amazing insights into what could happen and what are the best ways to stay safe. His invaluable assistance made it possible to create my 3-step martial law survival strategy for recognizing the warning signs, for immediate reaction, and long-term survival when the anarchy comes to the U.S. Now, after months of work together, mountains of research, and discussions with other off-grid patriots, we are ready to share the results of our labors with you. We called it Alive After America: How to Escape Martial Law in the USA. A simple and effective plan for staying alive, staying safe, and staying free when martial law is declared in the U.S. The plan is laid out in simple language. Even a 12-year-old can understand it. And in it, you'll find everything you need to know to prepare yourself and your family for what's about to take place in America. You'll discover the real meaning of martial law. Most Americans do not know how it will affect them. It's not just about America being ruled by militarized police and your constitutional rights suspended. You'll find out the surprising reason why the government will still be in power even after martial law is implemented. Plus, you'll find out exactly what your rights are under martial law. You'll discover the 4 unusual warning signs that occur before martial law happens. Knowing these signs will allow you to see into the future, so you'll have weeks or even months ahead to take the necessary precautions and keep you and your family safe, and be on the way out of the danger zone when the inevitable happens. We'll show you where you can still find food and how you can keep your loved ones well fed in a martial law scenario when food is rationed and grocery stores are closed. Also, where to obtain the essential crisis medical supplies. Plus, in a crisis, who to barter with to obtain these items if you run out of them. How to travel safely after martial law is implemented. You'll find out tips and advice from World War II survivors on how to not get shot by the police. The simple and strange cabinet trick that prevents the government from confiscating your stockpile, and how to keep your weapons and ammo without the authorities realizing it. This means that you can still defend yourself and your family when you need it the most. You'll discover whether to bug in or bug out when martial law hits. Unknown to most, sometimes it is a much wiser decision to bug in. You can make the decision based on this simple 7-point checklist that will tell you exactly what to do. And if you need to bug out, you'll discover what are the essential things to have with you. Missing out on any of these crucial items could mean life and death. Most preppers forget item number 4. This was the most sought-after item after Hurricane Katrina hit. How to live under the radar now and during martial law, and what news sources are available in case of communication breakdown and you cannot access the internet. The 3 steps to do in order to keep your family safe when the police or military troops come into your home. Plus, you'll discover exactly what to say to the authorities in order to avoid being locked up in a detention camp. There are 13 words that will deem you as suspicious, so never use them when talking to the authorities. When you try the Alive After America program today, you'll also get the benefit of 2 additional special reports, absolutely free. The first of these reports will teach you how to hide your guns from the bad guys. There are many scenarios when you don't want your guns to fall into the wrong hands. This special report will show you where and how to stash your guns so that they're almost impossible to find if one doesn't know where to look. The second special report, The Invisible Stockpile, shows you how to hide your stockpiles from thieves, looters, or anyone else who might want to snatch it from you, while keeping your food supplies fresh and unspoiled. When savage beasts are roaming the streets and grocery stores are empty, having this knowledge will ensure that the mobs aren't turning their attention to you, so you can survive and keep feeding your family, even as an entire neighborhood is on fire. By now, you may be wondering how much you have to invest in the Alive After America program. We started our research using our free time, and soon enough, it turned into a full-time project that we ended up pouring our souls and our life savings into. What we ended up with was more than words on paper. It's the condensed lives of those who contributed to it. It's the tears and hopes of those who saw their lives getting crushed by martial law. Some of my clients are saying that the advice inside the program is worth at least $500. And if you truly understand the value of keeping your home and family safe in a disaster no matter what, you'd agree. To me, my family's safety is priceless. And even though you might feel the same, I know not everybody can afford a $500 course. Sure, we like getting paid for our hard work, but this is not what it's about. It's not about making a huge profit. It's about doing the right thing and helping people out. So that's exactly why this program isn't going to cost you $500. It's not even going to cost you $250. Bill and I agreed that we wanted this to be available to as many people as possible. So that's why, if this video is still up, you can get to know everything there is to know about the martial law threat and how to protect your family against it for just a one-time special offer of $39. The only way to get it is to click the Add to Cart button now. So click the orange Add to Cart button now. After you click the Add to Cart button, you'll be taken to a secure order page that looks like this. Simply fill in your payment details, place your order, and you'll receive complete access to the entire program. And the price doesn't even matter. That's because you're covered by my 60 days, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. You need to be absolutely delighted with the knowledge you receive in the program, or simply send us an email at the address located in the members area for a prompt, no-hassle refund in under 24 hours. You have a full 60 days to decide. You risk nothing when you try the Alive After America program. So go on, click the Add to Cart button below. So there you have it. In this short presentation, I've shown you how martial law isn't some tinfoil conspiracy theory, and that, in fact, it has occurred more than once right here on U.S. soil. I've told the story of one of the darkest pages in U.S. history, the unjust imprisonment of over 120,000 law-abiding Americans during World War II. And I've shown why a martial law scenario is likely to happen in the very near future, perhaps even this year. Now, you're standing at a crossroads. And the way I see it, there are only three paths you can take. Path number one is simple, and it's what most Americans are doing right now. It's the path of ignorance. Most people would rather pretend that all is well, that the signs are just fear-mongering, that the government could never turn against its own people. This is what the Japanese Americans thought when they went to war to die for this country. And as a reward, they got to see their families taken from them and put behind barbed wire. Path number two means you could take the knowledge I gave you today and try to assemble your martial law survival plan on your own. If you've got the time, the connections, and the resources to do this, retracing our steps will be a good investment in the safety of your family. But most people would rather not reinvent the wheel, because time is running out. And that brings us to path number three. You can test drive the Alive After America program today, completely risk-free, because you are protected by our 60 days money-back guarantee. And just picture this simple scenario, set sometime in the near future. You're watching television, and you see something that shocks you. You hear news that militarized police are breaking into people's homes, confiscating guns, putting everyone who is suspicious into a van, a bag over their heads, and locked up in detention camps. But you are safe away from harm. You read the newspapers, and the people are praising the government for ridding the country of dangerous gun-wielding preppers. Because you already saw it coming, you saw the warning signs months before anyone else did, and took all the necessary steps to keep your family out of harm's way. You are still free, still alive, and you are far from all this horrible action. And that's because you used the simple martial law survival strategies you got from Alive After America. You owe it to yourself and your family to at least try out the program. You'll be absolutely blown away by the knowledge and the step-by-step survival plan that is laid out. Or you can get a complete, no-questions-asked refund within the next 60 days. So click the Add to Cart button to access the program. Remember, you risk nothing. Don't wait until it's too late and regret not taking action now. Click the Add to Cart button below and enter your payment information on the checkout page. You'll gain access to the complete Alive After America program. Thank you for watching my presentation.